Okay, so I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining me today for this Lexis Plus webinar session. My name is Whitney Kiles, and I'm the firm's telephonic research consultant. Essentially, my role is to make sure that you feel comfortable using the Lexis tools that the firm subscribes to. So at the end of this session, I will send you guys a follow-up email that has my contact information. It'll also include a recording of today's session and a content flyer letting you guys know what's available to you through Lexis. So I first want to start off, if for any reason when you first log on to Lexis, if you're brought to the traditional Lexis homepage, what you want to do to access Lexis Plus is go to these dots up here at the top. This is your product menu, and this is where you go to access any ancillary Lexis products that the firm subscribes to. And so you'll notice that there will be an option for Lexis Plus. Click on that option, and then that will bring you to what we're looking at right now. Now with Lexis Plus, essentially the big difference is not only can you conduct traditional legal research, but you can also get analytics through Lexis Plus, as well as access Law 360. And you can also access practical guidance, which used to be a separate product, but it's now been rolled into Lexis Plus. And I'll touch base on all those different things here shortly. So by default, you will be put into legal research. Legal research will search all content types. So cases, statutes, any secondary content, news, things like that. You'll also notice that you still have your main search box right here. This will allow you to search citations, terms, you can type in secondary sources, and you can even ask it questions, which I'll show you that here in a second. Next, you have your pre-filter option. So if you want to only search through a particular content type, you can do that, as well as if you want to search through a particular jurisdiction or jurisdictions, you can do that here too. If I scroll further down, explore content. This was also a part of the traditional Lexis. I do want to point out though, just from my experience, explore content is usually underutilized, but there is a practice area tab right here. And if you ever want to select a practice area and set it as your home page, what you want to do is after you've selected the practice area tab, you want to scroll down. There's a link here called View Our Practice Centers. And practice center is really just another word for homepage. And our practice centers are broken down by jurisdiction, as well as practice areas. For the firms, specific reasons, you might want to check out the corporate and M&A practice center or the securities practice center. I'll go to securities as the example. So by clicking on this home button, you can make this your research start page. And so then the next time you log into Lexis Plus, it'll just bring you here. You'll notice that you still have your search box here, but now all your searches are tailored towards securities law. You can access your statutes and legislations here. You can even search through them specifically by just clicking on whichever source you're interested in. If I scroll further down, you've got a list of your federal rules and regulations. Under administrative materials, you can access SEC materials, decisions, orders, things of that nature. And then you can also access secondary materials. So if you're looking for, a teaching guide, here you can access what's available to you. And so just really wanted to point out these practice centers and how they can be useful because they just contain all your sources on one page. And then last but not least, within the practice center, you do have your topic searching. And so if you like to start your research off by accessing all content types by a particular topic, by clicking on securities laws, browse topic, for example, you can select any topic that you're interested in, and then it breaks it down into subtopics. And then essentially what you'd want to do is just click on the subtopic that you're interested in. And as you can see, it'll provide you the content types that all discuss that particular subsection. And so those are practice centers. And once again, that's just within the practice area tab. Scroll down to the bottom and select view our practice centers. Now, in terms of new functionality, so let's say we want to get some answers in terms of securities fraud. So just like with traditional Lexis, as you're typing out terms, you have recommendations that populate below. If I scroll further down though, we have what's called suggested questions. And now when you click on a suggested question, let's say if I were to do, what are the elements of securities fraud? This will now take you to what's called answers before you get to your results. And what answers does is it actually pulls out the primary law as well as the dictionary definition for your question. Now, if I wanted to tailor my answers to a particular jurisdiction, I can definitely do that. I would just come over here to the court filter. And let's say we want to select New York. And now my answers will be tailored toward New York, including the results. And so here, as you can see, we have a case that is defining the elements to securities fraud for us. And so you can see that that saves you a lot of time. It brings you to a good starting case to get your research started off on. And then once I scroll down past answers, we have our results. And I can sort my results depending on my preference. So I just want to point out the sort by option here on the side. Something else that's been built into Lexis Plus is within search within results, we've now added the exclude filter. So oftentimes when you're doing research, you'll notice that all your terms are mentioned in your results, but when you start reviewing your results, you'll notice that a particular term pops up and it tends to take it out of the context of what you need. So instead of having to rerun a search from scratch, you now have the option to hit the exclude button and you can just type the term in here, apply that filter, and it will remove that term out of all the documents for you. That way you're only previewing documents where that term isn't mentioned. We just wanted to point that out. Now, in terms of statute-based research, we have put in an analytic where you can compare 2-year versions of a statute to determine the changes that have occurred. And so for this example, I'm just going to act like we already had the statute citation. Magnifying glass, and because I have the citation, this will take us straight into the document. And so you'll notice that this big button appears on the side that says compare versions. And then here at the top, you can select the 2 years that you want to compare. Once you've selected the applicable years, you hit compare versions. And then anything that shows up in green, we know that it's been added. Anything that shows up in red, we know that it's been deleted. There's 2 ways of how you can view your changes. You can do overlay view, which just shows you the changes in one document, or you can do side-by-side view, which shows you the 2 applicable years that you're comparing, and then you can see the changes in that manner. There's also a heat bar here. So if you wanted to quickly jump to those changes, you can do that. And so here I'm just going to scroll down just to kind of show you what you can expect. So for example, here I can see where the language did not occur in the current version. And then I can see where the language did occur in the 2010 version. So hopefully I'm not confusing anyone, but I can see that this language in the 2010 no longer exists in the current version. And then of course, if I scroll further down, I can see what's been added as highlighted here in green versus these numbers did not appear in the 2010 version. And so that will, that function compare versions, that appears within all of our codes. So if you have to do any type of legislative based research, this can help you guys save a ton of time. Next, I would like to jump into practical guidance. Now, the firm subscribes to corporate and M&A, and business entities appears as well. And so practical guidance is a good resource for anyone that's looking for practice notes, templates, clauses, articles, and checklists. And if you forget that, it will also appear here in the search box. Once again, you have your pre-filter options where you can filter down by practice area and or jurisdictions. So that's the first way of searching. Second way of searching is to just come down to the practice areas box. Now, when you go to practical guidance on your end, only the practice areas that the firm subscribes to will appear. So you won't have to worry about clicking into anything that the firm hasn't already subscribed to. If I go to corporate and M&A, you'll notice that you can put search terms in here to search for anything within corporate and M&A. The second way of searching is to come down to topics and tasks. And if you click on a particular topic or task, you'll notice that it will show you all the practice notes, any templates, clauses, checklists, etc., that exist for that particular topic or task. You can also use the filtering options to narrow down by jurisdiction or any other applicable filters. A useful way that I find for searching, especially if you're looking for content that's tailored to a particular state, is once you're within the corporate and M&A page or the business entities page, if you scroll down, you can browse your information by jurisdiction. So I'm going to select state and federal. And then I'm going to scroll down and select New York. And so now I can see all the New York content. I can see that there's 30 practice notes. With practice notes, these are written by actual people practicing still currently in the field. And so I'm just going to kind of scroll slowly so you can get a snapshot of the different practice notes for corporate and M&A. And let's say if I wanted to check out mergers for a New York corporation, I can see over here by related content, forms, clauses, and checklists that are mentioned. There's 2 cases that are mentioned in 5 statutes and legislation. If I scroll further down, this just gives you an idea of the format of a practice note. Now I'm going to go back a step and just point out that there are templates available if you're only concerned with New York. There's also clauses. So let's say you already have a template, but you just need a clause to insert into your template. You can access that here. And then there's additional content as well. Something else that's really cool about practical guidance is if I come over here to the tools and resources box, we have what's called state law comparison tool. And I noticed that the firm has a Delaware location. And so if you're doing any type of work regarding Delaware, let me go to corporate and M&A. And then let's say we want to check out, let's say LLCs in terms of mergers. And so what's nice about the state law comparison tool is you can either click on one jurisdiction or as many as you want to. And so let's say if I want to check out Delaware and or New York, you can select those 2 options, select continue. These are all the questions that I can have the system answer for me. And so let's say if I want to have all these questions answered, then I hit download report. I can then select which format I want. And what's nice about state law comparison tool is it's kind of like a 50-state survey in that it will give you all the primary law for each jurisdiction. And it's going to be already tailored toward the questions that you've selected that you want answered. And so once you've downloaded the report, you have your questions, you have your applicable jurisdictions, the page number here on the side. And then once you're within the report, you're then brought to your short answers where the system is supplying you with the primary law, including hyperlinks out to the primary law if you want to see it in full context. So that is state law comparison tool. And now let's jump into litigation analytics. So with litigation analytics, this is a really good profiling tool if you want to profile a court, judge, attorney, or law firm. There's essentially 3 ways of how you can search. You can either type in a single entity in this search box, or if you want to compare entities, you can either compare courts and judges at one time, and you can compare between 2 to 4, or you can compare law firms and attorneys at one time, and you can compare 2 to 4 at one initial search. And so for this example, I'm just going to type in the firm. I'm going to go to the all entities box and select law firms from the search. And so essentially, just as an FYI, this is pulling information out of trial courts in the United States and federal district courts. This is not pulling appellate or Supreme courts. We are getting our information from civil dockets. And if you ever have any questions about what we're pulling, what you want to do is just click on the state tab here. And then there's a link here that says learn more about this data. So going back to the federal tab, we can find out information such as cases by type. So if I want to find out what's the main practice area that a particular firm deals in, this will supply that information for you. If I scroll further down, I can get an idea of how many cases does this particular firm file per year. Scroll further down, I can find out the major courts and jurisdictions that the firm's involved in. I can also find out the top clients based on open cases. I can see who the firm typically represents in terms of party. And then we have time to key events, which will include motion to dismisses, summary judgment, trial, and termination. Essentially what these numbers are showing you is on average how many days go by before any of these items are decided on. So for example, you have the motion to dismiss. This is looking at 603 cases. The earliest that motion to dismisses are normally decided upon for this particular firm is 347 days. The average is 490 days. The latest in days is 678. So this gives you a lot of preparation in terms of how much time, which of course translates into money, will be spent when you're looking at different motion types or trial as well as termination. And then we also have damages. Now these analytics, what's nice is that, let's say if I wanted to check out these 603 cases, this takes you into Lex Machina, which is a legal analytics that really goes into detail on motions, judges, damages, goes into a lot, and there's kind of a preview of it up here at the top. Through litigation analytics, you will get the summary for free, as well as you can access the case list for free. So that is essentially litigation analytics. With brief analysis, if you are a litigator and let's say you want to double check a brief before you file it, or if you even want to double check opposing counsel's brief, you can upload a Word or a PDF document. If you want to upload one document at a time, you'll just go here where it says analyze a brief or passage. If you want to upload multiple briefs at a time, you can do that by going to compare multiple briefs and just hitting the start button. For this example, I'm just going to upload one document. And anything that you upload into the system stays confidential to your ID. And so with brief analysis, essentially what you're getting is a case law recommendation, including secondary recommendations based off the language in the uploaded document. And then I'll go into these other services here in a second. So if I click on recommendations, we're looking at our uploaded brief. And I can see that based on this paragraph, the system has 20 recommendations. And so 10 of those 20 recommendations are from cases. Not only does the system provide you with the cases, but it also gives you the relevant passages to assist you. And then I had mentioned secondary sources. So it's also pulling out practical guidance sources that can assist you, as well as treatise sources. And so this really helps you to not have to fully reinvent the wheel, make sure that you're not missing anything that could assist you. And that is once again provided under the recommendations tab. Next, you have access to similar briefs. So if you want to see what other people have written similar to what you've uploaded, you can access that here. You also have cited in your document. So if your task is having to pull all the documents that were cited to, by clicking on this tab and then selecting all the citations, you next can either print, email, download, or save it to a folder. And then last but not least, you have quote check, which allows you to make sure that all the language that is cited to is correct. If anything is incorrect, the system will tell you what that should look like. And so this allows you to double check your work as well as opposing counsel's work. And then you can even have the full report delivered to you by just clicking on this button. And now I'm just going to jump into Legal News Hub. So with Legal News Hub, this is where Law 360 is housed. With Law 360, if you're not familiar with it, essentially it will house different practice areas, including jurisdictions, and it provides you with the top stories of the day. And so if I were to click on more, here I can find all the different categories. And then essentially you would just select the particular practice area or jurisdiction that you're interested in. You can then subscribe to a newsletter where you're essentially just putting in your email address, and then the top stories will be sent to you via email. And so that is essentially what Legal News Hub will offer you through Law 360, or sorry, through Lexis Plus. And so that was essentially the rundown that I had for this Lexis Plus webinar session. This is not a one-time training. So as I mentioned earlier, I will send a follow-up. That way you guys can get a hold of me if you have any specific questions, or if you just want to go more in depth into any of the items that I've shown you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to either unmute yourself or you can write your question in the chat.
Whitney, it's Joe. I apologize. The first few minutes I was pulled away on a call. Did you did you demo CourtLink?
I did not demo CourtLink.
Can we take a look at that as well? Because that's something we added with our new subscription this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me go to the dots here at the top. So with CourtLink, this is your new docket service. And if you were using Pacer, where CourtLink really comes into play is it takes away the cost factor from using Pacer. So you don't have to pay those document access charges, or if you're trying to like print, email, download, anything like that. We actually pull everything that Pacer pulls. And we also pull state courts. Now, essentially, with our docket searching, where it says search for, you've got dockets. And if you want to search through court documents specifically, you can select that option here. Or if you want to search through both at one time, you can do that by just clicking dockets and documents. Now, once you've selected dockets, you can, of course, select the applicable court. What's nice about this is we include the federal and state courts in here. And so if I wanted to see what's included in New York, for example, I can break down the federal New York courts. And then I can also break down state. And so essentially what you'd want to do is just select the applicable court that you want to pull. Once you've selected the applicable court, you then just want to put in the docket number. Now, let's see, I know this is like a really, really quick CourtLink rundown. Let me actually go into a docket that I've already been following. Okay, so let's say, for example, this was a docket that we pulled. If you want to start tracking it, which essentially means you'll start being notified of notifications, you would click this bell icon up here at the top. And since I'm already actually following this, essentially what'll happen is a little form will pop up just asking you, how long do you want to track it? And do you want to be notified through email or online? Once you filled out that little form, then CourtLink will start tracking the docket for you. If I scroll down, here we're actually looking at the docket just as it's filed within the Clerk of Courts. If I scroll further down though, here you have the proceedings. And so what's nice about this is that it puts all the proceedings in chronological order for you. If you want to review them online, you can either select free and or the online feature, which let me keep scrolling down and see if one of these has online. Okay, so free or online. If you see runner, what runner means is that someone has to actually go to the court and retrieve the docket for you. And then they will they will retrieve the document for you, and then they will have to actually mail it to the firm. Runner is an additional charge, and it will tell you what the charge is. You'll even have to fill out the address and all that information. So there's no hidden fees in terms of using CourtLink. And so that was like a really, really quick rundown of CourtLink, but we can definitely set up a separate CourtLink webinar session where I can really go into the weeds of it. But just as kind of like a quick rundown, was that okay for right now, Joe? Oh, he might have went back on.
Yeah, I think that's okay for now. If anyone needs kind of more in-depth demo or training, you can reach out to Whitney directly and do that. And I think Cheryl had a very good question, which Beth already answered. It's whether we can still type in Westlaw citations into Lexis and pull up the document, and the answer is yes. As well
Joe,
as
I know going back to CourtLink, we had talked, but we can also do, maybe a paralegal session on, a CourtLink session for the paralegals. We can do it for different groups, the clerk's office. So we can really dig into what each, practice area or, employment group does in, dockets.
that's a good idea. We'll do that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
I also told Whitney before you came on, is that I'm trying to get you guys an audience at one of our, Thursday morning litigation meetings. I'm just waiting for the two partners who run those meetings to let me know when there's an opening. So hopefully we'll do that. kind of late
Sure.
April or early May.
Are they doing that in person?
There's always a conference room available, but most people attended remotely.
Okay, because I'm like, I could always go if it was well attended in person, but you let me know, whatever works best.
Yeah, I would love to, you know.
Okay, thank you.
And I have one more question on Law 360. So I know it comes up in Law 360 articles come up in searches, but can we access Law 360 directly from Lexis now?
Yes. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to click on this Legal News Hub tab. And then all of this is Law 360, and Law 360 Pulse is in here too.
Yeah, I don't think the firm has Pulse at the time, but they do have Law
We
360.
actually just renewed Law 360, and I
That's
have
right.
10 test accounts. That is it, Andrea?
Andrea, yes, yes.
Andrea, yeah. So I have to let her know who's gonna test it. It'll be a combo of attorneys and paralegals, so that'll happen next week.
Perfect.
All right. Were there any other questions at this time?
Is there anything besides Court Lake that anyone wants a deeper dive on in like a separate session, or really to focus on, I know Whitney did a great job of highlighting the new Lexis Plus platform. Is there anything specifically in here that maybe we want to dig deeper into? I mean, you don't have to tell me right now, but if you want to email it to Whitney or tell Joe, we can certainly coordinate various sessions on the different tools in here.
Yeah, and I will, in the follow-up email, you guys will have a content flyer attached to it. So it'll list out the descriptions of all the additional products. And you'll also be able to just click on the product in the content flyer and it'll take you straight into the product. So as Beth mentioned, if you have any questions, or if you want a separate webinar session, I can certainly set that up just like today's session, and we can go from there.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And be on the lookout for those Amazon gift cards. We'll put the in today.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to hear you, Joe. So we'll be in touch for sure.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
guys.
Whitney.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye.